In the heart of a European winter, as the year 1944 drew to its desperate close, the specter of a war thought to be nearly won rose again with a terrifying fury. The Allied advance, a relentless march across France since the Normandy landings, had stalled at the German border. An eerie quiet settled over the Ardennes, a dense, fog-shrouded forest straddling Belgium and Luxembourg. The soldiers called it the Ghost Front. For months, it had been a sector for rest and recovery, a place to break in green troops. But in the biting cold of mid-December, this tranquility was a lie. A storm was gathering, a final, desperate gamble by a cornered enemy. On the morning of December 16th, the quiet was shattered. Under the cover of dense fog and falling snow, a massive German force, spearheaded by elite panzer divisions, crashed through the thinly held American lines. Over 250,000 soldiers, thousands of tanks, and artillery pieces launched a surprise offensive. The objective was audacious: to punch through the Allied front, race to the sea, capture the vital port of Antwerp, and split the British and American armies. It was Hitler's last great offensive of the war in the West. A desperate roll of the dice he called "Watch on the Rhine" to the men who fought it. It would forever be known as the Battle of the Bulge. The initial German assault was overwhelming. American units, outnumbered and outgunned, were thrown into chaos. Communications were severed. Divisions were cut off, surrounded, and forced into brutal, isolated fights for survival. The German advance created a massive salient, a bulge, in the American lines, pushing westward with terrifying speed. The weather, a crucial German ally, grounded the formidable Allied air forces. In the frozen forests and snow-covered fields, American soldiers, many of them barely out of training, faced a terrifying onslaught of Tiger and Panther tanks. It was a fight for every village, every crossroads, every patch of frozen ground. One such crossroads was the town of Bastogne, a vital hub of 7 roads. Its capture was essential for the German advance to continue. Racing to defend it was the 101st Airborne Division. The Screaming Eagles rushed into the breach with little more than the weapons they could carry. By December 21st, they were completely surrounded, hammered by German artillery and armor, and short on ammunition, food, and medical supplies. The weather was brutal, with temperatures plummeting far below freezing. Frostbite became as great an enemy as the German infantry. The situation was grim, the outlook bleak. To the surrounded and freezing paratroopers in Bastogne, the German commander sent an ultimatum: surrender honorably or face total annihilation. The acting commander of the 101st, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, gave a reply that would echo through history. It was typed, centered on a single sheet of paper, and delivered back to the Germans. It contained only one word: nuts. The defiance was electrifying. It was a statement that the American soldier would not break. In the face of impossible odds, they would hold the line. They would fight on. While the heroes of Bastogne held firm, a massive relief effort was underway. To the south, General George S. Patton, the fiery commander of the Third Army, performed one of the most remarkable logistical feats of the war. Upon hearing of the crisis, he turned his entire army 90 degrees to the north, disengaging from one enemy and driving through the ice and snow to attack another. He promised the high command he would reach Bastogne in 48 hours, a feat considered impossible. His men marched relentlessly, his Sherman tanks churning through the frozen landscape. It was a race against time, a desperate push to save the besieged garrison. Finally, on Christmas Day, the impenetrable fog and clouds that had shielded the German advance began to break. The skies cleared, and with the clear skies came the sound the beleaguered Gias had been praying for. The drone of aircraft engines, C-47 transport planes appeared overhead, dropping desperately needed supplies of medicine, food, and ammunition into the Bastogne perimeter. Following them were the Thunderbolts and Mustangs, Allied fighter bombers that now swarmed the skies, hunting the German panzers that had roamed with impunity. The tide was beginning to turn. The day after Christmas, the lead elements of Patton's 4th Armored Division finally broke through the German encirclement, linking up with the defenders of Bastogne. The siege was broken. The German gamble had failed. They had thrown their best remaining forces into the Ardennes and had been stopped by the sheer grit and determination of the American soldier. But the battle was far from over. The Bulge still had to be reduced. A brutal, grinding fight that would last for another month. In the snow-filled woods, in the ruins of frozen towns, the fighting raged on, a grim war of attrition. The Battle of the Bulge was the largest and bloodiest single battle fought by the United States in World War II. Over 1 million men took part. The cost was staggering. The American forces suffered over 80,000 casualties, with nearly 20,000 killed. The German losses were even greater, a blow from which their army in the west would never recover. They had expended their last reserves of men, machines, and fuel. The path to victory had been bought at a terrible price. Written in the snows of the Ardennes, the battle was a testament to the resilience of the common soldier. It was a story of small units, isolated and alone, holding out against overwhelming odds. It was the story of the defenders of St. Vith, the paratroopers in Bastogne, the tankers of Patton's Third Army. They endured the bitter cold, the shock of surprise, and the terror of combat, and they did not falter. Their courage in the face of the enemy's final desperate onslaught hastened the end of the war in Europe, ensuring that the darkness that had enveloped the continent would finally give way to the light of dawn. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten.